Hey, deserving listeners, Love is Blind. Let's watch.
How it would work.
Yeah.
And then once we actually got into the real life, a lot of the disagreements that we had ended up being non-existent.
I feel like what the show did.
All right. Well, that's good news. I was worried about them, but it sounds like so Danielle's saying that the ambiguity as to whether or not we're going to say yes or no was scary and taxing on us and would trigger us to have a lot more conflicts. But once we got married and we have that security of, well, we're married now, we got to make it work. I can trust my partner wants to really be with me since they married me, that the conflicts stopped, which I could see happening. Given what we saw, I can't see that being a permanent situation. But, what do I know?
Arguments can be a positive thing.
One of the things that we've learned and that's really helped us with our communication is to listen more and talk less. And
that's great. Yeah, that's something that I'm frequently working with my clients on. It's not necessarily, obviously it makes sense to listen more, but a big part of it is to really listen, to really, instead of, because so many, if not literally all conflicts that happen between couples, it is a misinterpretation. And I found myself as a young couples therapist frequently talking about misinterpretations, thinking that it was just a subsection of conflict. But over time, I think, I don't know if this is entirely true, I'd have to think about it, but I learned that most, if not all, conflicts are based on a misinterpretation. That for Danielle, when he is upset, she misinterprets it as, you don't love me, or you're going to leave me. When Danielle is upset and saying, what you did the other day, it triggered me. When you said that, or what you just said, it kind of triggered me. For Nick, he misinterprets that as a criticism, and a criticism that will lead to rejection. An in the moment critical rejection based on criticism. And then panic happens because of that misinterpretation, and then your defenses to that panic kick in, which we saw for the two of them. So the fact that they're not only are they reporting less conflict, but at least Nick has an approach that, we can imagine for Nick, instead of jumping to a conclusion, which we saw him do, to just stop and say, okay, wait, let me listen somewhere. What are you saying? The other thing that, quote unquote, listening versus saying will do is it forces you to slow down. So often in conflicts, it's because people are moving too fast. And we did see that between Nick and Danielle. They would both be saying things and reacting to things very quickly instead of just taking a beat and just being like, okay, what am I hearing right now? Do I need to say anything? That's actually one of the things that I will talk with a lot of couples and individuals with is, in the moment, it feels imperative that you say something. It feels absolutely required. You must address what happened just there verbally. You must say what is on your mind. You must communicate how you feel. You stop 9 times out of 10, you say nothing and just sort of, and what I tell people is, if it's that 1 time out of 10 that you actually probably should say something, if you take a beat and maybe even wait until the next day, you will know that it was important. You can always say that. It's very rare that you have to say something right now, particularly in a long-term relationship. You have the rest of your lives to talk about these things. So it can wait till tomorrow. 9 times out of 10, you say nothing, or you sort of you sort of restrain your impulse to attack and to address and to, tell someone how you feel. 9 times out of 10, you wake up the next day or thank God I didn't say anything. Because the mood I was in, the trigger that was happening for me, the mind, the mood, the space I was in, I was not in the right mind. And none of us are in those conversations. Even on a scale from 1 to 10, if you're a 3 or a 4, You're not of the right mind. You cannot think logically. And so I don't know if that's what they're talking about, but that's great.
Helped us with our communication is to like listen more and talk less. And I know like one of my faults is I'm a fixer. So like when there's a problem, I'm like, okay, I go into fix mode. And this is something we learned in couples therapy together. I go into fix mode. I want to fix it. And she just wants me to understand she's feeling this way, not fix it.
Yes. Wow. I'm so glad. I mean, I was really pulling for them, but I was terrified to have hopes. But the fact that they're talking like this, and that particularly him, honestly, and that they're in couples therapy. I mean, just imagine if Mike and Natalie had stuck it out in couples therapy. If all the other couples, Darcy and Georgie, or Darcy in individual therapy, if Tanya and Sinjin had stuck it out, if Ed and Liz had, and maybe they will, so many people could have this situation where I can root for them and not be devastated by their downfall and their pain that they give each other. So he's saying something that is very frequent. And a lot of times people will equate this with men. Believe me, this is not a male thing. This is a human thing. Women are like this too. That when you present a problem to your partner, even if it has nothing to do with your partner, but particularly if it has to do with your partner, we have this, and I don't know if it's particularly like an American thing or something, I'm not sure, but there's this tendency to be like, so the steps as I see it, and I've worked with many clients, it's a very common problem that people have that Nick is aware of now, which is good. Doesn't mean he's going to always be able to fix it, but at least he has a roadmap, where before he did not. So the first thing that happens is Danielle says something like, what you said right there, it kind of triggers me. When you said that you were still wondering if we're a good couple or and whether or not we should get married, that just triggered me. And we saw that at, I think, the cake tasting. And so she's saying that thing you did right there, it triggered me, and now I'm upset. What the steps? It's very important that you understand the steps. It's very important that Nick explore this and that Danielle understands it. All of you out there, if you're in a relationship, this applies to everyone. That you understand the steps, you understand the progression. Because if you just look at the behavior, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But if you understand the progression, you understand everything. So she says, what you did right there, it triggered me. So right away, a fear response goes, so Nick hears that. It's like, if you just take it, the data, okay, my fiance is telling me that I caused suffering in her because of something I did. I did something just 10 seconds ago that caused pain and worry in my fiance. And one, that makes me feel bad and guilty and ashamed. Two, that also makes me feel afraid, because if my fiance feels I've done something wrong, they might leave me, particularly if I have traumas. But really, all of us are like this. When someone complains about us, we have an immediate worry, even if it's largely subconscious, that my partner is going to leave me. Again, particularly if we have traumas around that. And so that there's that, okay, criticize, she's saying, what you just did made a bad feeling in me. He feels fear, she's going to leave him, and he feels hurt and guilt for having caused harm, which those are good feelings. He worries he's going to lose her, and he doesn't like it when he hurts her. Those are good feelings. But if you don't have a way of knowing that's happening to you and expressing it, it's never been modeled to you, you're not in therapy, don't have a way of communicating about that, then you are largely unaware of that experience of the fear and the pain. And you're largely unaware of what happens after that. So then right after that, typically what happens is, okay, I've got to put an end to this. She's feeling a bad feeling that might cause her to leave me, and she's feeling a bad feeling because of something I did. That's terrible. I have to stop that feeling. Okay, that's another good impulse. I don't want her to feel that anymore because I don't want her to leave me, and I also don't want her to be in pain. It's another good impulse. I'm noticing what's happening. I'm having an emotional reaction to it. I don't want this to happen. I don't want to feel this way anymore. I don't want her to feel this way anymore. It's another good impulse. Okay. But the next thing is, therefore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell her to stop it. I'm either going to fix it or I'm going to tell her that there's something wrong with her. Because if I tell her, it's totally irrational. But if I tell her something's wrong with her, she won't feel that feeling anymore, and she won't feel bad, and I won't feel guilty, and I won't have to worry about losing her. If I tell her that she's wrong, that she didn't understand me, that her feelings are weird, that she's crazy, then the feeling will go away. I won't be worried I'm going to lose her. I won't feel guilty anymore, and she won't feel bad anymore. If she just understands that she's stupid, that there's something wrong with her. You understand the problem there, right? Because you're introducing a new problem. It's like you're fighting fire with a bomb. Instead of, a house is on fire, and instead of putting out the fire, you're dropping a bomb, and the fire goes out, but the house is gone. So you don't do that, right? You don't create, you're hurting to stop hurt. It doesn't make any sense, but it's illogical. But if you don't have other ways of dealing with it, that's what you do. So what you do is you get this vibe that Nick would do, just like, you're wrong. That's not what happened. You're not a good, you always do this. You freak out. Instead of, because he's trying to fix it. He's trying to get the feeling to go away. He doesn't like that she feels this. Okay. But, so, it's good that he feels fear he's going to lose her because he loves her. He doesn't want to lose her. It's good that he feels pain and guilt that he has caused her pain. It's good. It's a good feeling. It's good he wants to fix it. The solution to fixing it is to listen. Listen. You could say wars are caused. I would say wars are caused by this problem. Instead of going to the enemy and saying, what did we do? What are you worried about? Let me, tell me so that I understand. We could stop wars. We could stop divorces. We could stop crimes. We could stop violence if more people did this. And just okay, tell me. It's a leap of faith, though, and it's almost never modeled to people. So the solution is, okay, Danielle, what happened? Well, when you said that you were wondering if we were a good couple, it triggers me. It freaks me out. It makes me feel like you don't want to leave me. Resist the urge, if you're Nick, to be like, but that's not what I said. Or, no, you're always distorting things. Or, you're always, exaggerating. Or, you're too emotional. Or, you're illogical. That's not what I said. I said this. Just listen. And convey your hearing. Oh, okay. So because I said that earlier, you feel like I'm going to leave you. That it felt that way to you. Yeah, it felt that way. Okay. Yeah. Now, you could logically in that scenario, it's not always the case, to say, well, to be clear, I don't want to leave you and I love you. I shouldn't have said that. That isn't what I meant. I was just sort of speaking out the top of my head, if things don't work out, then we probably shouldn't be together. But believe me, I do want to be with you. And I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have said it like that. I'm sorry, But that listening phase is critical, right? That listening phase. And sometimes, not necessarily in that scenario, because some reassurance was probably called for, but in a lot of scenarios, listening is the only thing you have to do. It's the only thing that will help, and it's the best thing that will help. Your partner is angry at you. You did something wrong. And you take a beat and even if the thing I tell my clients is, even if your partner is completely irrational and wrong, listen. One, because it'll help. Two, because it's possible you think they're wrong because you're distorted. So just because you think your partner is wrong doesn't make them wrong. You'll understand you're not the objective logical one and your partner isn't the illogical one. You're both illogical. You're both irrational. You're both bad observers of reality. Just be humble in that way. And listen and understand. And sometimes all you got to be like, oh, so when I did that thing yesterday, that hurt your feelings. I can see that. You don't even have to apologize half the time. Because just listening will solve it. At least it'll be the first step, maybe in a 2 or 3 step process. But yeah, so it's great that they're doing it. I'm so happy for them.
Problem, I'm like, okay, I go into fixed mode. And this is something we learned in couples therapy together. I go into fixed mode, I want to fix it, and she just wants me to understand she's feeling this way, not fix it. And so like, I'm constantly trying to remind myself, Nick, you don't have to fix this.
Yes.
You just have to listen. Yeah.
So did you, Danielle, move in?
And a lot of people have had relational traumas around when you have a family member who is having an emotional experience, you are made to feel as a child as if it's your fault and your responsibility to fix it. So it's not like we necessarily just emerge out of the womb with this kind of mentality. A lot of people, I would say a majority of people, have a trauma like that, where they had a family member, someone in their life that was having a bad day or having a big emotional reaction, and instead of having support or dealing with it themselves, having a healthy way of dealing with it, they blamed someone. They blamed you, and you ended up feeling like other people's emotions are my fault, my responsibility, and I have to fix it. And if I don't fix it, very bad things are going to happen right around the corner. And so when I'm guessing from his behavior, he's a candidate for that kind of relational trauma. It doesn't sound like he has a huge case of it, because he's able to overcome it with, I think, relatively few amount of sessions and with relatively little effort for him, So, I think they have that going for them.
Sure than I do? No, I'm not kidding. Well, don't go that route.
On the show, I get it.
So that has actually also happened. Sorry. No, but
It's the only way to test it.
No, but we have dance parties, and I'm not kidding. He gets on the tables before I do.
To be clear, the island in the...
Okay, so they're talking about, dancing on the furniture, having dance parties, and it sounds like Danielle has sucked him into her rock band dancing on the tables lifestyle, which, is nice to hear. I think Nick could use a few dance parties although he's pretty tall, so, he could hurt himself. But we just heard Shane say, because he was making a sexual innuendo about furniture breaking, and he says, yeah, I'm a sex addict. We don't know, but I would suspect he's just saying that he thinks or talks about sex a lot. It's possible, though. Sex addiction is a real thing. It is no joke. And it's not just cheating on your spouse. Sex addiction is debilitating. It is awful. Sex addiction is terrible. The best movie you want to watch to find out what one version of sex addiction can look like is the movie, I think it's Shame, with Michael Fassbender. That whole movie really shows you, without telling you, what sex addiction can look like. Another version was actually in Thanks for Sharing, with Mark Ruffalo, Tim Robbins, Gwyneth Paltrow, Josh Gad. They, particularly the Josh Gad character. If you want to, the reason why I want to say this is because a lot of people, similar to other terms that I will often rail about, throw around sex addiction, including people who are caught cheating, trying to get out of the responsibility of making choices. And the general public seems to think like sex addiction is just someone who might be a little bit more interested in sex, or maybe makes bad choices about sex. And that is just not the case. Sex addiction is awful. It's awful. So, but anyway, I'm glad that Nick is able to dance on chairs and tables.
My bad.
Let's take a look at a home video from the new Thompson household.
Hi. Hello. Oh, good. Okay, so we're gonna show you around. We have Wiz.
Yay! They have the cat. I was slightly worried that Nick was gonna nix the cat, which would be a deplorable behavior that would cause me to hate him forever. But so yeah, of course the cat's there. We had a cat. In fact, my wife is watching I'm reacting in my office. She's upstairs. watching it in our living room, and she just texted me, not realizing I hadn't gotten to this point, that Danielle's cat looks like our old cat. Our old cat died. We actually got the cat as a foster cat because the owner was going through a medical problem. And then about a year after, and the cat was pretty old, and then she died because, you know, she was old. So I'm glad that maybe our cat lives on in Danielle's cat. That's what I'll tell myself.
Hello.
Spotlight.
Oh, now she's ready. Hello, Izzy.
Oh, and for those of you who knew about Michelle, because you would see her behind me, that's a different cat. Michelle I had from the time she was like 1 until she died at, I don't know, 14 or something.
We still haven't figured out where to put all my clothes, so they're all kind of just scattered in there, unfortunately. But
We're making progress.
we are making progress. I have a rack here, costume here at least, and turns out he likes costume just as much as I do.
Okay, well, using as a jumping off point, John Gottman in Seattle and colleagues researching couples, one of the things that they found was that over time, satisfactory, long-term, lasting couples will merge their personalities in some ways. I don't think that's the language that they used, but people will start talking similar. They'll use similar jokes. They'll use similar inflections. They might even start laughing in a similar way, and they might actually start to adopt hobbies or interests that the other person has that you never had, or you might shed interests or hobbies that you had because your partner doesn't have that. Now, of course, there's a pathological version of that where you completely forego yourself to meld with someone else you just become. But a bit of that is actually an indication of love and passion and connection and bond and shedding things that don't enhance your relationship as much. And so it looks like Nick is starting to do that. He's adjusting either consciously or unconsciously. And that's always the best case scenario, right? Where sounds like he's like, I like dancing on tables. I like wearing costumes now. Not I do it because she makes me. All right, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.